pickup area, kind of on the back side of the thing. Well, we'll get started here, but we don't have a quorum yet. AJ's on his way, but I saw a guy that hit with his trailer one of those cement bollards that sticks up out of the ground. He was just like trying to cut a corner around there, and just all of a sudden everything just stopped, and there was this terrible noise, and this trailer like stops, looks back, and the bollard's like about like this. It's like, man, you'd have felt that one in your bones, you know.
Yeah.
He adjusted his axle.
Those bollards don't go around, you know.
I'm just surprised because usually, like, if something like that happens, like the alarm will go off, and like whenever you hit the alarm, if it's gone off, it like chirps different, and it didn't. It was like just kind of normal, and I was like,
Yeah, I thought you'd be at Silicon Valley Bank, distributing things around. So.
Man, I thought I was going to have to go for a second there.
Yeah, did you really?
They kind of put us on high alert, but...
Oh, yeah, I mean, I guess with contagion or whatever else. So this is Kalen Camp. He's our secretary. He works for the FDIC.
Hey, Wes.
So,
Wes. Good to meet you.
Yeah.
He's the guy protecting your deposits. I sort of think of the FDIC as the true ninjas of the U.S. government. They go in the dark of night and just... I don't even know how it works. Like, it's just like, everything's going to work on Monday. Like, I don't know how you're going to do that, but it's pretty cool.
You guys had signature right after that too.
Mm-hmm.
Signature was like Sunday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That went down.
Sunday, Monday. I think the one reason we didn't go is because it's so hard to get anywhere out of the Little Rock Airport.
Yeah.
There are no direct flights or anything. So
It's a smart play.
for their offices. Yeah, so I'm not complaining.
Dang the luck, yeah.
So AJ messaged me. He's on his way. So let's just give him a minute here. I know we're on camera here, but I'd rather wait. I think we have a quorum if he's here. So we'll wait. We'll wait a minute. Today happens to coincide with the Conway Chamber of Commerce event. So John Henderson and Stacia both had to be there because First Security Bank sponsors it. So apologies if I kept anybody from this thing, but
We've been to plenty.
I'm not much of a giant social gala person, so
Our invites are in the mail.
What's that?
Our invites they're in the mail.
Yeah, that's right. So
Where do they hold that? Is that?
It's at Hyper at UCA
Oh, okay.
oh, is that what it is?
in that big gymnasium. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
They're usually pretty
Pretty big.
they're pretty fun. So when I was at the chamber for 3
About
years, and
1,000 people.
yeah, we put them all together, and it was good, really good. Who's speaking this year? Who's the?
I know Bob Diller was one of them.
Yeah, there were 4 guys. I think for the guy from the chamber in Little Rock, Dillard, 2 other guys I can't remember that are
Bob or Bill, the younger one? Bill Dillard.
it's like names that rhyme like that.
I think me and Terry met Bill at Dirty Kansas. Oh, we met Bill.
Hey Jay, how are you? All right, we got your roll call there, Galen. So we got Wes Pruitt, we got a new member here. So welcome Wes. He's a former city council alderman, I guess you call him. Is that right?
Formerly on this board too.
Oh yeah, I
I
guess
was on
so.
the first board.
All right, well you're back. So
We started it.
anyway, well it's a real mess now.
Your legacy member?
I'm a boomerang and came back, I guess.
It's all right. All right, so we're good on, I think we have a quorum. I think we have a quorum here. Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, we're good. So I guess we'll call this meeting to order. First thing to do is approve previous minutes. Kalen, thank you. I thought you did a good job with the minutes. I didn't have any changes. Does anybody else have anything that we wanted to register changes to? All right, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Anybody else? Second?
So
All right, let's have a vote. Approve the minutes, all right, unanimous vote. Old business we had was discussions about changing the bylaws. We can discuss that again, but basically the biggest changes here were taking a lot of the kind of former sort of ex officio members from the city and basically just voting them off the board and then consolidating, like the board used to have to interface with like multiple different people in the city, and basically just moving that to Terry as the bicycle coordinator, not Terry specifically, but the bicycle coordinator, should some future other bicycle coordinator exist. which I was fine with. There was also a question about the whether or not the representatives that we had for the board needed to be a part of the particular organization. So we have basically CAB members for the school and then for pedestrians. And there was some confusion whether the school member needed to be official. We've never treated it that way, but the city for a little while was interpreting it that way. It looks like they no longer interpret it that way. And so the representatives can just be like Jeremy saying, hey, I believe in safe routes to school. And so we can just kind of nominate people that way and kind of have them be their focus for any kind of committee activities or anything along those lines. So AJ, I think you might have had a few things that you were going to look at on those.
Yeah. My concern is I don't necessarily. I think it would be good to have some of these people attending meetings. So, for example, if we're going to have, regular updates on current projects, I think transportation would certainly be nice to have at the meetings for that direct conversation to happen on projects, so questions or follow up, that type of thing. That was the biggest concern I had.
I understand that. I also think like with the roundabout thing, I don't know. I've been pleased, Terry, with this most recent, it feels like the cadence that you've got with Kurt is pretty good right now.
Right.
For
I'm attending the street department meetings.
Okay.
I attend their monthly meeting where they review all their projects.
Those are open to the public, right?
Those are not.
They're not.
Those are not.
Well,
It's
so
a department,
It's a department,
it's
internal.
with the internal department meeting. So I provide those projects to BPAB. And I'm trying to do that in advance of the meeting so that you have a chance to review them.
When they typically hold their department meetings, is it?
It's like the second Tuesday. It's usually like it was 2 weeks ago. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like that's been working pretty well. I do understand the concern though, just because it's like right now it's working, but if it doesn't, then do we lose?
Well, I mean, if I can jump in there. One of the answers to the questions that he put in there, I think it was, have you considered, like a more Dutch style roundabout?
Yeah, I've got the notes here.
Yeah, so his response was, what was that one?
Didn't feel.
Right here, I don't feel it's justified for this.
Yeah, I don't feel, so I mean, that's the discussion that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I can elaborate on that if you would like, because
Yeah, tell us how Kurt feels about that.
So with the volume, that's a high volume street. That's not necessarily a location you'd want to throw a completely new style of roundabout into the mix, where that Dutch style roundabout where people have to learn. That's something that they might be open to at a lower volume project in the future.
Yeah, okay. I think it was more of a design. I don't know if there was necessarily much of a functional difference.
There's multiple designs for that Dutch style roundabout to the point where they're even on an elevated pathway circling inside of the cars. And so it's hard to provide feedback whenever there's about, 6 or 7 different types of Dutch style roundabouts that.
So the one I think it was more of just
I
creating.
deleted my image of it, unfortunately, of the little circle that I'm in.
I mean, the one that we looked at was really just kind of making the circle along the outside more of a circle, as opposed to, I think it required traveling up and then kind of crossing and then traveling back down. It just made it a little bit more of a direct route. And I think we discussed the raised portions, and I think that's probably a better one for the future. My concern is essentially the design is not really looking forward. It's kind of like a Band-Aid for, saying we've met some requirements for making something bicycle friendly. So what is the plan, you know, if for example, on this one, what is the plan once somebody gets through the intersection? Like there's not really a path after the intersection, so are we going to direct people, you know, back into traffic and require them to merge in with cars that are already going 25, 30 miles an hour at that point? Are we going
Are you
to,
speaking of Prince, since there's not a specific bike lane on Prince, or a country club? I think you answered the question about country club.
yeah, so Prince is kind of what I'm thinking, you know, if we're gonna provide kind of a crossing there, like I guess my biggest question is what's the future plan? Like, are we designing this to account for
Yeah.
anything in the future?
Well, they'll exit the roundabout and then resume back to normal traffic patterns that they had prior to the roundabout. So if there's a existing bike lane, such as Country Club, then they'll go back onto Country Club onto the bike lane. Prince, there's not currently a bike lane, so you'll basically merge back into being able to use the full lane.
So are they trying to get away from that full lane idea? Because it's marginal at best. It works for right now.
Yeah, I don't know the details on widening Prince. It would have to be widened to add a bike lane.
Right.
And so that's not a project. Widening Prince has not been discussed.
Yeah.
I think
Pretty expensive.
I think they already have sidewalk all along it too, don't they? On Prince.
Is the golf
Yes.
course?
There is a
I
sidewalk.
think there is one on the south side.
Yeah.
It's not on the golf course side.
Is that right here?
There's
Okay.
there's one in the north of Prince, I believe.
Is there?
Yeah, it just butts right up to the road.
I do have a question about this. And maybe you don't know, Terry, but like, how is the decision made on these streets to make them 3-lane with the kind of middle turning lane versus like? Because to me, it's like, how often is that used relative to it? Would it be better to have like to narrow the lanes a bit, or to do 2 lanes and have bike lanes on a street like that? I think of like Meadow Lake, or where there's these big long turning lanes that essentially never get really used, maybe 1/4% of the time or something along those lines. Are those opportunities from a design standpoint to narrow them a little bit and put in bike lanes or something along those lines?
I'm sure there's a more scientific answer to it, but a lot of it has to do with those neighborhoods and that you're interacting with all up and down Prince. The frequency of those streets are probably what have something. So while you don't see cars necessarily stacked up in that middle lane, those side streets are accessing a whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
So
That's
that
why.
So,
That picture right up there, you're looking off to
Yeah.
the west.
that's exactly
It
what
turns into what Jeremy's talking about.
Yeah, it does narrow in here,
That's
and
what-
I'm sure there's a reason for it, but
Yeah.
that is something I've wondered about a lot, where it's just like,
I'm happy to ask the question.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it has something to do with all those
Yeah,
neighborhoods.
The
along
neighborhood issue.
So, yeah, I think I got us off into the weeds a bit here. We were still on changes to bylaws and we kind of jumped ahead to,
to the roundabout.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I understand that feedback, AJ, and I do kind of share a concern. At the same time, I do feel like I think it's actually kind of handy to have a kind of an advocate in a bicycle coordinator. My concern would be more like, if there isn't a bicycle coordinator, what happens?
Yeah,
right?
no, I'm certainly not proposing, I think it makes sense to still have a bicycle coordinator on the board for sure. I think the direct communication on, especially design questions like this, transportation, there are certainly people who are current, ex officio members who, I don't know if it makes sense to have them as ex officio members. But, there are a few, police would still be great to have in attendance for questions. Planning would be nice for sure.
Do we have a planner now? Is James replaced?
Yeah. He's been replaced.
So that's my only that's probably my biggest concern with the proposed changes.
Wes, you haven't had a chance to look at these yet. We've just kind of kicked this can down the road on the changes a little bit, and Stacia and John aren't here. We've got 2 more members, hopefully coming soon, or another member or 2, because we've had some turnover. So, you know, I mean, I think from my perspective, AJ, that I'm not concerned about this enough to try to do something about it, you know, but I do think that we can email Kurt, we can try to engage in other ways, I think too, if we need to, because we can set up another meeting or something along those lines. So I'm not trying to dismiss your concern. I'm also just like, I don't know I don't think the city like wants to clean it up and have fewer people and kind of have a dedicated rep. And I think it's been a pretty good cadence, you know, from my perspective.
Is there anybody that's not responding? Do we have anybody that's not responding to questions? Because, you know, that's a lot of times whenever I receive questions on the council, I enjoyed getting them via email because I can do a little bit of my own research, because not all the time I know what I'm supposed to answer on the spot. And I go back and find that information out. So if someone's not responding, then that's something that we could bring up to the council, you know, and just be like, hey, you know, listen, we just need responses. You know, we don't want to make them come to our meetings every week or every month, but we want
We
responses.
should have weekly meetings and make them come.
Yeah, exactly.
we're gonna do this every week if you don't start coming.
So I'm not aware of anybody who's not responding.
Okay.
The only thing is, you know, I think it should be more of like like emails make sense when someone wants to ask you a question, you know, like once every few months. But if it's going to be like a conversation, like, you know, like where can we possibly put this style of roundabout in the future, or like what are some things that we should consider if we were going to, you know, pick one for that type of thing. Like that's more of like you're going to sit there and you're going to type out an hour-long email, and then, you know, it's a lot of overhead just to kind of try to communicate something.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's enough of an interest there, or their opinions are needed enough that it kind of makes sense to have that available as a conversation. So
Do we have enough questions every meeting that is going to keep them here for an hour and answer all of our questions? Because that would be my other concern, is have them here and have them answer 2 questions and then sit here for the rest of the time, kind of like this. You know, maybe like a quarterly thing where we'd be like, hey, they can come in quarterly and like this is our time to ask questions, like, you know, if we have any conversation. I just don't want to, you know, not waste their time, but
right. No,
I know you don't either. I'm not saying that at all.
no. So what we did in the past was when Finley was here, is he would come, answer questions, and then we would always have him kind of up first. And I think, you know, especially now, it seems that the city is going to provide this. I can't remember the resolution at the number, but basically where the city is going to bring projects to us for input. So that's an existing resolution that I think I believe it's the city's intention to kind of.
As long as I can't remember the feeders, or I forget the names of.
Right. Yeah, sorry, I don't have the more of the details on that, but basically, yeah, transportation, right?
Yeah.
Transportation is going to bring these projects to us for input. So, you know, this roundabout, I think, was one of the major ones, and then there's going to be more in the future, I would anticipate. So,
You know, one thought I just had is that, you know, we could put something in to the effect of that we have that we can invite people, particularly virtually. I don't think it'd be a problem for Kurt to die, because we don't need him for a quorum or anything under the new bylaws. We don't.
right.
But if it's just like, hey, that we have the right to request, you know, with reasonable accommodation to have people from the city kind of come in if we have questions, and virtual is fine.
Yeah.
But I think that wouldn't be a bad
That's a good
thing,
idea.
because it's only, you know, hey, we need to talk to you for 10 minutes. Like, can we do it during a meeting? And then we get it, you know.
They can do it from their house real easy.
Okay.
So I like that. That's a good idea.
Okay. Well, let's if everybody's okay with that, what I will do is as soon as Kaylin reminds me to do it with the minutes, I'll make an adjustment to that and run it by Felicia just to see how she feels, just to say, hey, it's not a requirement, right? It's just that, hey, we may from time to time request the attendance of somebody over Zoom and, you know, or whatever else, so something along those lines. So But I think that would be, I mean, I think it's a really fair point, AJ, and like, there are some times where it's just like, oh, hey, well, why couldn't we? Let's talk for 15 minutes about a Dutch style roundabout and what that is, like, and I think we should be able to like, at least then we get it on the record and we're doing it out in public and everything else, so that's fine. Okay, that works for me, so we'll punt it one more meeting.
Well, we need supermajority on the bylaws vote, so we're not there tonight anyway.
I mean, just, it's difficult to get there. AJ's my man on the bylaws rules, so I didn't realize we needed quite that many. So okay, that's fine. So that's that. So we'll come back. We'll kick it down. Hopefully, we have a supermajority next time, and we can discuss that. So we can move on. I don't think we have anything to vote on at this point. So. New board members, we've got Wes Pruitt, our new board member, so welcome, Wes. New business. Terry, you want to go through your updates here?
Sure. We got a note that one of the board members, Dustin, is not able to serve, so we're looking for more nominees. So just keep that in mind. I think there's a couple new applications that have just come in recently that the city's reviewing.
Is there a posting for that, or is it? Just
I think there's an open posting. I can't remember the deadline. Seems like it was the 24th.
Yeah, they do.
I think they're due by the 24th.
Yeah, they posted, and I think they put something in the newspaper.
Yeah.
A few things, and you're like, oh, the newspaper. Yeah, that's why I didn't see it.
Just making the board aware of that. So in the past, we've used Strava Metro data just to look at ridership, and we've had to pay for that. I had a meeting recently where it looks like I'm going to be able to get the city of Conway access to Strava Metro so we can use it. Granted, it's only Strava data that we can capture, but it'll give us an idea of, from a heat map perspective, where folks are riding, and you can even drill into the time of day and all that.
It's really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
It's
So,
really interesting stuff.
so that is going to be helpful for any pilot projects. For example, the next one is lane block. Is a potential pilot project where we talked about the lane delineators. So whenever we're working on piloting that on Hairston.
There's a new ones, AJ. The smaller ones, you can check them out.
And getting a quote on what it's going to cost to pilot those on Hairston. And then we can use Strava and figure out ridership. If it's increasing, decreasing, we can see who's using it and try to get surveys to those people.
Yeah. Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So,
on that topic, I've got the new smaller ones. I sent you some pictures of those,
Okay,
Terry.
yeah.
So this gives us a little bit of flexibility to kind of line them up 2 by 2 or vertically.
yeah, I think I
along.
saw you added one. I drove by the house the other night.
Oh, yeah.
Hit them one more time just for,
Yeah, we've got them in front of my house if you want to hit these things. So
I recommend. Yeah, so it's good.
But the smaller ones was a try to say, hey, can we reduce costs more by making them a little bit smaller? My personal feeling is the small ones are probably too small.
Too small,
I think. And one of the other interesting feedback points was that several people like the idea of facing them not with the high side, not the steep side facing traffic, but the flat side facing bikes, so that it was just less intimidating to riders. So we're going to add reflectors on the front end of those, and I'm getting a quote to see if we can produce them in Maumelle with an injection molding facility. We can do it this way. It's just a little bit more time consuming. It's more expensive at scale, potentially less expensive for a short run, but that's not really Conway's problem. So, but anyway, I'm trying to get those numbers, and then we can kind of figure out what's the right configuration on it.
So I was looking the other day, driving down Bruce Street, the new Bruce by the cemetery and those giant apartments. And there's a lane that's different than anything I'd seen before. It looked like it was a painted lane block. So you had a very specific, traffic lane.
Okay.
Then you had probably 3 feet
Oh,
that was
like a buffer.
hash marked, and then you had the bike lane. And I'm like, what's that? And I was thinking of those things, because we were talking about Hairston, which is a good idea too. I don't know if Bruce has got enough traffic on it, but it definitely, for a place that you already have it kind of painted.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And Bruce is funny too, because it's sort of got like what I call like a bike lane to nowhere, on Bruce, like
Yeah.
right where there's Donaghy, there's like these two nice little bike lanes that aren't connected to anything, right? So it's like, well,
So I don't know, on the testing. if
Well,
that's-
Is it going to
part of
Sixth
the
Street?
thought process on Hairston is that it's short, it's a quarter mile or so or less, and then it's part of Redden's route and a
Mhm.
connector to downtown, so it's higher cycling traffic. More so than Bruce,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
I just thought that was like, wow.
where is that at?
It's like right up or after
Bruce, before you get to Harkrider.
Harkrider. Yeah, from
There's a
Harkrider,
Hark-
between
the cemetery was
Harkrider.
big, right at the old airport area.
Oh, over there, okay.
Yes.
East end
Oh,
of the
yeah.
old runway.
Yep, right there.
Okay, in that area.
So see,
Oh, yeah, those things.
So see, I was like driving there going, wow, that's different. And that's when I thought of your,
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, that makes sense. I understand what you're
it's
saying.
not a
Those
whole.
are just painted. Those are just painted.
Those are
it's
just painted, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
painted
just
up.
painted.
Just a buffer.
There's also
Buffer space, so
This is what it
you
used
don't
to
have
look
such
like
a
up
wide
there, so yeah.
driving lane.
I think they also have those on, is it Robinson?
Robinson's got a
It's not
double one.
quite as wide, but
Yeah. No, Robinson's got a double one. I even thought about trying to do a shape that is just mirrors that angle so that it's parallelogram, basically, so that matches that, because I think it's an interesting shape and it does create a little bit more buffer. So. But yeah, no, that makes sense.
Because that's an easy one, Dan, and it's a fairly new street.
Tucker and Salem.
Yeah, so the Tucker Creek Salem, the flashing beacon has been disabled for about a month now. Construction's about to begin. It's probably going to take about 18 months, plus or minus. So the timing of this, trying to time where Tucker Creek will reopen by Pompey Park for the veterans sometime early May, and then the construction. So one section of Tucker Creek is going to reopen, and then another section further down is going to close, but we're trying to work with the construction company and the private landowners to try and create a temporary access trail that will go around the radius of that.
We talked about that, right, last time.
Yeah, we talked about that, so that's a work in progress.
That is basically right.
And it might just be a gravel trail, but it'll be a trail. So
Just like right.
yeah, so you would have to, back there where the tree line is at the corner of the parking lot, go back
right here.
right there. Right now, kind of the proposed thing would be you would leave the trail, access that parking lot, and we got to sort all this out and cross over at that property line up there just south of that house,
And then basically
and
around.
then re-enter, so that's where all of that would have to have signage and temporary markings and everything.
So
And that radius is needed because of cranes and all sorts of stuff, so it's gonna need a fairly significant radius.
This is an 18-month project to do this whole
Yeah.
thing?
So was that, I'm trying to remember, was that a tunnel? They're putting a tunnel?
Yeah, there'll be a tunnel there, and eventually, so yeah, you'll just ride under Salem,
Mhm.
and there'll also be, on the east side, you'll be able to ride up and just hang a left if you're headed west and go up the east side of Salem.
Right.
Oh, so it'll go around.
Well, no, the other way,
Oh,
my understanding is you would hang a left, if you're coming west on Tucker Creek,
Okay.
you get to Salem. You could, before you even cross Salem or cross under Salem, you'll be able to hang a left and go across the bridge there and access the sidewalk or whatever.
Yeah, because right now that sidewalk just kind of ends, and there's a stretch between
Yeah.
where it ends and where the trail begins,
Yeah.
it's kind of awkward.
I think that's actually like a covered drain that they use
Yeah.
as a sidewalk.
Well, those covered drains are everywhere. There
Yeah.
you go. All right.
So that's the plan. So the beacon is currently not working. Just a reminder of that, and it gives you an idea of a construction timeline.
So is this officially, is it gonna be like closed or is it like closed? Like
It
you can ride on it, but you're not supposed to ride on it?
we're going to try to find a solution to have a go around and keep it open.
Okay. The whole time?
Currently, Pompey Park is closed, like really closed,
Closed.
and people keep jumping the fence and
Oh, really? Okay.
riding. And it's a huge liability thing for the contractor involved.
Oh, yeah, no, that makes sense.
I've noticed that. I thought it was open for a minute there because I saw so many people
Yeah, so
walking through when I was at Walmart.
Endangering their own lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Oh, what you can do with these people?
Are they going to move the flashing signal up whenever they get that temporary?
I don't think there'll be a need for it once. Well,
Like when people are having
I
to
see what you're
cross?
saying for the temporary. I don't
Yeah.
think they'll move it.
They're pretty.
Necessarily.
This version is really. They're like
Yeah.
6 figures.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're significant. A little flashing hawks could be like $5,000, but like this one is.
Yeah. So I think once the tunnel's done, you won't really need it. And so the hopes are that we can maybe repurpose that. Well, I haven't had that conversation, but maybe we can repurpose that and find another location for it.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Just if they have something like during that 18 months, whenever people are having to go a little bit north,
Yeah.
as far as it's kind of a busy area.
There's nowhere to repurpose it yet. Couldn't we just move it up?
Just depends on utilities and stuff.
I'll bet
I
you
don't-
the pool's
Probably
a big deal.
difficult when they're doing construction to move it up because,
It's
like you
probably
said, you
gonna,
need that crane and
they're gonna be swinging
swing
stuff around and all that. So it's probably disabled because they're getting ready to take it down. So.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah.
Big footers there, I would guess. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe something more temporary like the one crossing.
Little
Prince or
flashing hawk.
something.
Yeah, I love those things. I would put
Yes.
30 of them in. I mean, to me, you probably you'd run into 10 just getting here. If I had to say anything about it. Yeah, I think that'll be really cool. I didn't realize they're gonna have to go. That's gonna be a lot of drainage work and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
That's that's a whole thing, isn't it?
So when does it start? Pretty soon.
It's gonna start in around early May.
Right.
And the Veterans Park's gonna open about the same time.
Phase 2 is starting on the west side of Tucker Creek, but the phase 1 should open is getting close to being done to where they can open. It's just held up by weather.
Yeah.
And
It's been nasty, man.
so there's a couple things they're just waiting on before they can do the paving. And so while we're on Pompey Park, phase 2 started across the creek, and during phase 2, it's going to damage the bicycle trail
Okay.
that was built, and obviously the plans are to rebuild that, and so waiting on survey markers to find out how much of that is. They should be putting those down anytime now, so we can figure out the radius of how much of that trail close to the creek is going to be destroyed. Some of it's going to just get destroyed naturally in the course of construction,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all going to get redone, and if we can enhance it, we'll enhance it. So, so we did a social media post to announce that it's closed. It's marked closed. There's yellow tape, caution, all that. So the part it's just partially closed. 75% of the trail's
Still
rideable and
Yeah.
open. So.
That makes sense.
Um,
Bike share's next thing on.
yeah,
those.
so bike share, that's a cab project, but they were working on a new location for bike share. It's currently off of College in about a 200 square foot garage, and they were working with the city. That opportunity is not going to happen just due to public safety and EMS needing a place for the ambulance and a 24-hour crew. They're going to refurbish the building that we talked about putting bike share. EMS is going to pay to refurbish it and put their crew there. So I'm working with CAB to try and find other options. And also kind of just, they may want to consider increase in fundraising so they can, pay for a lease or something.
I was at their meeting last week and there was some discussion about it, which of course now escapes me somewhat, but they were talking about they're like needing a bigger space and potentially trying to invest in something. I mean, they've got a decent, they got more budget than BPAV does.
Yeah. I told them I thought Soul Food Cafe, because I've been there.
Yeah.
There's a ton of space in that place, and it looks like it's storing a lot of stuff. So I don't know, and it's already serving underserved parts of the community.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
it is far away from.
It is kind of far away is a problem, down a little. Is that a gravel road or
The one on South
Soul Food.
Defense Hill?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little,
So,
like driveway type
Yeah,
thing.
100 yards down the gravel road. So.
Yeah, they store a lot of the.
So that's kind of an ongoing thing, just a reminder to anybody on the board, if you know of anyone that's got a space available, that would be good, something 1,000 feet or so, square feet would be nice. The RTP and TAP grants are open, and so we've applied for those in the past. And just given right now, those are matching grants. So whatever we apply for, if it's $100,000 RTP grant, the city's got to match $100,000. And with the aquatic community center that's being built, there's no money left to match. So we're unfortunately this grant cycle not able to apply for an RTP or TAP grant.
Is that going to be multi-cycles, you think?
I don't know. It's I would say for the foreseeable future, it's probably 1 or 2 cycles at least.
Yeah, it's big construction.
Down to Cadron Ridge, we've already talked about Pompey Park. So that trail was never an official trail. It was always just trail users got to use it. Land's being sold, losing access. So trying to work on a plan to make that an official trail and get official land manager, land use permission.
It's Hal Crafton.
Hal
too.
Crafton, yeah.
Not Crafton.
Yeah. So, and Hal Crafton owns a large portion of that across there and trying to figure out a way to connect. But I also have to work with the county and some of the homeowners on Tullin-Tusky Lane that it's going to connect to and get permission from them really before I go too far with Hal, because Hal can give me permission, but if the landowners on Tullin-Tusky Lane aren't.
Yeah. Is he going to give permission, or is he going to give us full blown right away where we trade him impact fee credits or something?
We haven't got that far yet. It's just open to discussion. So before, I wanted to have answers on kind of the first part
Everything else.
before I go
Yeah.
to Mr. Crafton on that.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of land up there, and I just don't see him, since he lives down there below it, I don't see him wanting to build more houses up there that overlook, individual huge houses.
And that's the thing. I don't know what it is.
So it'd be nice if we get more than just a cut through
Yeah.
trail, because we could build.
Well, ideally too, then there's also the 60 acres by the water tower, which is Conway Corp. It's not really city.
No, it's city.
Well, I know it says city, but it's Conway Corp.
Okay.
So that's something that we could have. My pie in the sky idea is that if we can get the Cadron Trail, the Ridge Trail made official and all the proper permissions, then we could probably very easily get permission to build on that 60 acres by the water tower.
That's
by
the train
You're
tunnel.
at the water. You're almost
You're
down
close.
it.
Yeah, you're right there. So there's 60 acres right around there.
And Hal owns about 120 up top of the ridge, and I
Yeah.
know Bill Atkinson owns some more to the left.
And so then you would have, for example, at Cadron, we have 5 miles of trail and 36 acres.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we should do that because it's very close a lot of times.
I have literally never made it on Cadron without getting.
So,
one day.
You
I
know,
will.
but on 60 acres, we could probably get another 4 miles of trail
Yeah.
and have good use of elevation and then connect it with a 2-mile connector across the ridge to Cadron. And so now it's starting to become more more of a
No, there's some good elevation there too. So yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Does Walton Foundation give any money to purchase land to build trails on? Is that something in their purview?
not outside of
Bentonville?
Northwest Arkansas.
We can annex.
Yeah.
I mean, they did that. They did
Just
that.
annex this little area over to eminent domain it to Bentonville so that
Well,
they can
yeah.
build some trails in there.
And also
It'd
talk
be a
to,
wet county.
Yeah.
Well, in Northwest
that's right.
Arkansas,
It's just a different county.
and me and Terry have talked to Brett Conway Corp, and he's given us unofficial permission, to build things on the, power line, the big open power lines right there at Cadron. You see things like in Little Rock or even in Bentonville where they have, the big kind of like swooping trails.
Yeah,
going
those are
up and
fun.
down.
I love the river
I
trail.
mean, it would be, the river trail, exactly,
Yeah.
that one.
I
So
like that
similar to that, and he's given us permission to build that whenever. I mean, it was probably 4 years ago we talked. I was on the council.
Yeah, I
still,
think
so.
it'd just be a matter of coming to them with an official plan
Exactly.
and having them look at it and say yeah or no.
Sorry, we're getting off subject.
And speaking of more trails, there's a 3-mile trail at the tech park, Meadows Tech Park, formerly HP, now it's Gainwell Technologies, that Conway Development Group gave the easement to the city, and we're nearing completion. And we're doing a trail work day, kind of right up there in the very north part, kind of where that Cat 2. In the woods just north of that Cat 2 building up in there. There's construction going on this weekend. We've got a work day from 9 to 12.
Whose land's that?
Conway Development Group.
This is the Chamber's development entity. Like, I think leased this. I don't know, do they lease it? Do they own it?
They own
Do
it.
deed it?
They own
Okay.
it.
Yeah, they own it, and then they
Conway Development Corporation.
Yeah, they sell off parcels as people move in. And so
or lease.
So basically we're building, and it's for the entire community to use, but it's also going to be good for, like, if you were employed at Gainwell or one of those businesses out there, you're going to have single track and hiking trails right outside your door.
Mm-hmm.
How far will it extend?
It's a 3-mile loop.
Does it go around?
You're going to go all the way around the park.
Okay.
It's going to go all around the property line. So I'll kind of show you here. So I'll just start here. We're doing the trail work up here. It'll come down, and actually the property line comes down. It'll cross over here, around the field, all through these woods. It'll wind all around here. Across here, cross over the dam. Professionally built trail by Affordable Trail Solutions is all in these woods, all around. Pops out, goes around this little pond.
Right there is that pond.
Oh, there it is.
Yep,
Goes
right
around
there.
this pond, crosses over, comes up here, goes back up, and then crosses all across here. And then we'll cross. So there's a couple street crossings, but it's a 3-mile loop.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, most of the streets aren't very busy.
Pretty good place to teach your kids how to drive, by the way. So.
Well, that's where they had the crits out there last year too. And
Oh yeah, those are such cool
It
pictures.
will be a place where we could have events, and that's kind of the goal. Is
Have a Nike event there.
to have some type of NICA.
It'd be great, all the parking and everything. Yeah, man, pretty neat.
and having 600 kids and their parents and their people in town for a long weekend.
Oh yeah, no, that's great.
Revenue to the city.
No, absolutely. Connector Trail, Tech Park, we've covered all that. I want to show one thing that I came across. I was in Fort Collins 2 weeks ago, and I came upon this little disc. I sent this to you, AJ, I think, when I was up there. And I thought this thing was kind of cool. It's basically thermoplastic is what it is. So it's got like the sandy grit stuff that's in the street, and it's not like a bike lane indicator, it's more like wayfinding. And I thought this could work really well for some of the, green, what I've been calling green streets, like just those feeder streets that can kind of go in, like, hey, what if we got a bunch of these and just like, you just literally heat them, you just melt them to the ground so they last forever. But I thought it was kind of a cool thing. I am playing around with, this is not commercial interest. This is just a, hey, what do you think? Would the city want to do these? Because we could just, go and get a quote on, I don't know, however many thousand of them, and just, hey, here's the bike route, here's the streets to use on that.
Probably cheaper than the signs.
Yeah, I mean, that was my thought, is that it'd be cheaper than the signs, easier than paint. And if we wanted to do, some kind of, hey, let's designate Mill or Mitchell or a few of these and try to do like a pilot of one of these things. And Terry, I know you got all these things, that you're always, you're sensitive about bandwidth with, the city, but I don't know, it just came across as an idea like, oh, that wouldn't be so bad. So I'm going to just throw a design together when I can find 30 minutes to do it and just get a quote and see what they'd cost, but and see if I can get a sample. But I thought it'd be kind of cool for these just to start saying, oh, hey, this is a street, like if you're on bikes, just go this way kind of thing. So that wouldn't cost a bunch of money. So anyway, I just thought it was kind of a cool thing.
One other thing I'll bring up that wasn't on the agenda, Peter texted me today, and the bike-friendly community has to be reapplied for, and the deadline's August, so I'll be working on that.
Okay, cool.
So is that like every 5 years or what's the?
I'm not sure the cycle, but that's probably about right. I need to, I'm not familiar with what their cycles are on those designations, but
What is the time?
there's different standards, so obviously we want to apply to be the highest. We need to look at what the parameters
What it'll
are.
take. Yeah, I think that's a good incentive to try to look at some of these things of like, oh, hey, what would it take to get to this? Because I think it'd be a big thing from an economic development.
They give us points every time they do the report card. So every time they come and we get recertified, they give you kind of points to look at for. So we were at bronze. So it says like to achieve silver, look at these items specifically.
Yeah.
And you can actually find the report card, just pulling it up online.
Our last report?
The one from the League of American Bicyclists.
Is it the one like from ours, the one that we specifically applied for? Do we have that, like a copy of it? Because I mean, from the last time, just so we can compare and say, here's what we wrote, put on the last one, or is it, I don't know if that's how.
This one's from them. I don't know if we're talking about the same thing. It comes from the league.
Okay. But I was thinking our first application, like our last application, was what I was kind of referring to, just so we could look and see like what we had on the application and see if there's anything that we could add.
So you can pull the report card up, and that's their feedback. So when they score it,
Okay.
they say, this is where you're at for communities that have achieved silver. This is typically what you see. Or
You need to be a little bit taller.
I think what you're
better
saying
looking,
is something to
yeah.
help me do the
Exactly.
Well, that's what I kind
Picking
of
up,
think.
I'm
is
following you.
This could be a good opportunity to say, okay, what do we need to do? Like, is particularly as the Connect Conway thing comes through. I mean, I think that is such a huge opportunity to truly connect the city to all that, which is kind of where I started kind of, fantasizing. You can tell that I have like a rich fantasy life about maps. So, but it's.
I'd be glad to help, Terry. If you,
Okay.
I'm around, send me some emails, and
All
I
right.
just like to look at it.
Yeah.
But then, you go able to do a strategic plan in a sense. If you looked at what we did last time,
Exactly.
and
That's
you look
what,
at, say, the silver or whatever levels we're
Let's
at.
go for gold, baby.
Let's just say, okay, let's plan on these. Even if we make half of them, you're probably going to bump up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the bottom, it's key steps to silver. So we were bronze, and they list out looks like 7 items here.
that is specifically for us?
Can you
Or is that-
Specifically
can you
for
message
Conway.
me that link?
Yeah, I'd like to see that link too, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll send it out.
Yeah, that's neat.
When does the Connect Conway Trail start, by the way?
Good question. So the construction has to start by 2027.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
We'll be
There-
dead by then.
there's- yeah.
That's so good.
so it's federal
We need more
government.
veggies.
It's federal government and all that. Obviously, it's approved, but there's a whole kickoff, there's a contract that's got to be signed, and then you have to start easement, and you have to have 100% of the easements and acquisition done before you can start construction.
Now,
Wow.
do you know if
Work to be done.
if the funding was a part, is the funding for land acquisition too, or was it just for construction?
I
Those were both.
think it covers both.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought it was, because it was, I mean, it wasn't a little bit of money. I mean, it's like $24 million, right? So,
Is that a use it, lose it type deal?
Yeah.
Assume.
Well, you've got to, for the contract, you got to have all that done and started by 2027, and then there's certain timelines you got to meet for them to keep paying you. But if you don't,
Yeah, sounds like government.
Yeah, it will, yeah.
Use it or lose it.
So I actually wanted to go back and talk about one of these updates from you, Terry, if still got some time here. Yeah, the Strava, the data counts, actually, so I wanted to bring it back up, but I'm actually looking at these steps to silver, reviewing these, and it's talking about continue to develop a bicycle count program that utilizes several methods of data collection, including automated bicycle counters, provide long-term data. My concern, I don't know what the proposal was with Strava, but I think, if we're using this data to kind of generate an idea of what routes we should be looking at for more infrastructure or more like lane blocks, that kind of thing. My concern with utilizing Strava mainly is that I think the people who are going to be needing this infrastructure most are not going to be data points on Strava. So do we have any kind of other collection methods that are going to go along with that?
there are other collection methods. They're costly, and then you have to go out and download the chip and download the data and scroll through the data like one by one.
interesting. I wonder if Google has any of that data. They've got some plans with cities.
Yeah.
That
My
would be
phone goes when I'm
interesting.
on
Yeah.
my bike.
Yeah,
sometimes.
there are bike lane counters that can do it automated, but it's very costly. Like,
Yeah. I wonder, because Google does have the whole thing where we can upload preferred bike routes to Google, or I can't, you could, right? Because it has to be a city representative, and it makes me wonder if they have some data as
Yeah.
well, because like I think their traffic data is freaking incredible. But it would seem like, yeah, it's a good point though. That's always my concern with Strava is like, especially
it's
as
not
e-bikes.
it's not the end all be all by
Yeah.
any means.
It's good though. I mean, it is great data.
But there's nothing.
And the running data, I think is really interesting because like I think the places that people run, like there's probably something indicative like there that is not, that's probably helpful for cyclists because you don't necessarily want to run down the busiest roads, you might run on some streets that aren't there. So it may be
What about like Apple? I mean, do they have any? I mean, I'm sure you probably can't get access to any of that data, but like Apple Watches.
I mean, they sure shared it. Well, boy, Apple Watch data would be pretty interesting because they do detect you. They do detect
Again,
you.
I think the demographic we're looking at who's going to benefit most from like bike infrastructure as utility purposes, for creating safer streets.
Nobody's proposing that Strava is.
No, well, I was talking, I mean, we're talking like Strava, Apple Watch, like, I'm thinking of,
We
like,
gotta get data somewhere. I mean, it's not just gonna pop up.
Right.
We gotta get the most data that we can and then use that to our advantage.
Well-
Just saying that there's, it doesn't apply to someone, I don't think that means that
well,
we
no,
shouldn't
it's-
use it.
right. No, I think what Terry is talking about is probably, at some point, we just got to invest in something that's an actual like physical counter.
I'd like to know how much those are.
Yeah. Because that's going to give us the best.
I saw one in Northwest Arkansas that was digital and just showed the count at the top of All American, and that was like 75 grand.
How did it, do you know how it counted?
It just
What kind of
traced.
sensor it used?
Apparently, you could tell walkers. It was able to discern a difference between a bike and a in a walker because it counts every day how many walkers and how many bikes.
Do you know,
Has it on a screen.
do you know someone up there who could tell us what?
Yeah,
What
there's
exactly?
actually more cost-effective means with the actual trail counter, which is a little gray box with a beam.
Yeah.
That whenever you go by it, it triggers it, and that's the one that I'm saying. Like you have to go out and physically pull the chip and download the data.
I'm thinking of stuff for places like if we were going to count them on certain streets, for example, like how would, I can think of a few ways, but I'm curious how those work for discerning bikes and pedestrians and cars and that type of
This
thing.
is such a hard thing too, because it's like, well, how do people cross a river, right? Like if there's no bridge, right? You know what I mean? It's sort of like, I look at bike lanes in a sort of way that like, there's plenty of places that a regular person's just never gonna ride. And so like, you're never gonna get a count on, on the ride that never happens. And in the same way that nobody's ever, where should we put well, where are people swimming across the river? I don't know. I mean, like, people aren't, it's not happening. And so it is something where it's just like, to me, like we just need to commit to a network of some sort and
So, yeah, I think we're talking about two different things here. So, yeah, you're talking about detection for the purpose of determining where to build something, whereas there's also, you can kind of know, like, for example, I'm thinking of East Conway. So areas like we've talked about Ingram Street before, where you just see like a constant stream of people walking and
totally.
riding. And it's like, we know that there's people there who are trying to access things via bike and walking, or, on the opposite or the other the north side of Oak Street, in that area. Like you see people over there. The question is like, how many are there? Like,
Yeah, that's a good point.
and how can we compare? Can we set a threshold, once we see this certain number of people, or, we do see this certain number of people, let's build something. So, yeah, I agree.
No, I think it's a good point. And like we talk a lot about bikes here, but like there's a heck of a lot of people that are just trapped on their feet.
Right.
So,
It all has to work in concert with the Connect Conway grant, like whenever that goes in, and how these roads are made, pedestrian and bike safe to access the trail, because it's going to open up a whole new group of trail users. So I don't know that necessarily right now, strategically, I would invest in a ton of that until that's done, and then I would strategically put things.
Talking about Esau.
Jeremy and I could come up with a lower cost solution.
of a vision counter.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. Listen,
that was my,
I'm 100% thinking there's
Echo,
probably
counter,
open source
my
vision
robot.
There's quite a
libraries.
few
that was
on
my
Amazon.
graduate project.
Was it really?
Computer? Yeah, I think we could figure it out.
Listen, and anytime you come into a thing like this, it's like, I'm happy to talk about it. I think
Yeah, we'll figure
this
it
is
out.
a very, I don't want to say it's an easy computer vision problem, but it
It is.
is an easy computer vision problem.
Yeah.
The other thing too, like that,
Some of them.
that language from League of American Bicyclists, that maybe they've updated that language too.
Well, this was 2019. I mean,
So,
yeah,
I don't know. There's a lot more ways to capture stuff now since then that maybe they're updating. And
says developed bicycle count program utilizes several methods of data collection, including automated bicycle counters to provide long-term data on bicycle use at fixed points, and mobile counters to provide periodic or before-after data related to changes in your community's road or bicycle network.
Something like this is probably what you're talking about, AJ, right? Like
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
yeah, it's going to be that. Yeah.
I was reading on that one. It looks like they have like different ones, that will do like trails differently. Then it'll do like, busy areas with cars and stuff too. And it can detect the difference between them both.
This is like a camera module.
Whenever I see anything with quote request, I'm like, that's expensive.
Yeah. Whenever it's not posted up there. Yeah.
I mean, it's a Raspberry Pi and a camera module.
That's the way that I look at the world. Like,
Yeah,
you
it's
look
using-
at a little.
It's using AI. It's camera on.
I'm telling you what, the world is changing. Like the world's like literally changed since our last meeting. In terms of image recognition and text and all that stuff. I figure give us 2 more months and you can buy one of these at Walgreens for $5 or something. So
Alibaba.
And
Why don't we-
before the meeting ends? I had texted Kurt, with the street department on what determines the middle turning lane. He said it's based on street classification, left turning opportunities, and then my explanation was pretty accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we
it's gonna
change
be-
it?
How do they measure that? With a device probably,
That one's
right?
probably a major thoroughfare. I mean, it's gonna be, the traffic
Right.
count on that one's gonna be high, so.
Yeah, but they gotta count it somehow, right?
Population.
Yeah, we got little counters all over the place, just little things that
So
go
we can
across
buy
the line.
counters for cars, right?
Well, they're just a
Those
strip,
are
but
easy.
not people,
Those are just-
people have to step on them like a little strip, cause it's like a little, cable.
Rubber tube.
and it
That's
goes
why I
over
always
it,
jump them
and
in
it
my
rolls.
car, so I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I do too.
I wanna just F with the
Touch
man,
that.
so.
Can I propose what we add some of these points from the scorecard here to
Next
our
meeting?
agenda for next
Yeah, I
meeting?
think it makes sense.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Since we're gonna cram a few in here before they show up in the fall.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's do that.
Cool. We need a motion for that? No, this is just this is extra early notification.
It's just basically just, hey, can we put this on the agenda? I think
Yeah.
it's fine. I'm
No,
happy to
just-
vote on it, so, yeah. Can we vote ourselves gold?
We can make our own.
We're all winners here today. Any other business that everybody has? We're basically right at time here.
Yep.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Second.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. Let's wait for the red light to turn off. Cool, thanks, guys.
So on your Greenway map up there, is it the yellow that's the Connect Conway Trail?
Yeah, I changed it. I mean, this isn't exactly right, but it's basically, oh, thank you, I would have forgotten this. Yeah, basically the yellow,
Some of them are intensive. where you
is
can
where it's
just
supposed to
decon and
go.
Look at it yourself. but
right.
You're just
And the
on.
green streets are basically like Mitchell, Mill,
So you have to use it to.
little
like place,
places, sometimes through neighborhoods.
Yeah.
but If you look at it, just saying, where those buys
So
are.
is the dark,
Yeah,
is that
I
the
had,
existing
so my
trail that we
master's
have?
project for
Black is basically the
graduate school
existing
was,
trail, yeah. I think more or less all
computer
that exists.
vision application of counting cars, or it
Did you
was
get the
identifying
new section
cars
trail they
just through a
put,
camera
south of
feed
Dave Ward?
on
It's funny, I did a
red
television
eye.
interview about that, but I don't know that I
don't see it on there, but
you
I-
could easily
I can't remember exactly what it is,
retrain
to be
it.
honest
So it was
with you.
trained using a
think
library of
it's basically where we were zooming
side
in.
profile car images.
Pretty
You could
close to
easily
it.
replace those car images
Well,
with
maybe not.
people on
I
bikes.
can't remember exactly where it is.
Train it that way.
I went down to
Count the
it.
number of
Does it
people on
continue
bikes.
down here further?
Mountain bikes are.
Yeah, so I think I think it runs on the south side.
Yeah, so you can do person, so you can train it for.
Here it is.
for
This is my
people
problem.
So
upright.
could you do both, could you do the car?
So no one's.
I wrote it the other
Yeah.
day, and it was actually,
No, you could do two different.
Yeah,
it would-
there you go.
you'd just
It
train
does
two different
exist. I just
models
hadn't,
and
it was too thin, so.
basically have it.
Like the stone dam?
Yeah,
no,
I was looking at that.
I mean, we could build that for
I just said like, what we need to do is
you
get.
did a TV interview?
Yeah, Terry was like, hey, can you do some interview about this trail? So I just like showed up like this, and like